The restaurant fell silent the moment the boss walked in. At the corner table, under the soft golden lights, a tired-looking single father sat across from a sharply dressed elderly man whose presence quietly commanded respect. The father looked nervous but grateful, as if this moment meant everything to him. And then the door opened. The boss stepped inside and froze. Her eyes landed on the man she had fired just hours earlier for something she called unacceptable behavior. She had no idea who he was dining with. Before we dive into this emotional story, take a moment to support the channel. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and stories that remind us to never judge someone too quickly, please like this video, share it with someone who needs inspiration, comment where you're watching from, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps bring more powerful stories like this to life. 9 years. 9 long years. That's how long Daniel Carter had worked at Ridgewell Logistics without taking a single holiday. Not one. Every morning before sunrise, Daniel woke up quietly in his tiny apartment so he wouldn't disturb his 7-year-old daughter, Lily. He prepared her breakfast, packed her lunch, and left little notes in her backpack with simple drawings of hearts and smiley faces. Then he rushed to work. Daniel worked harder than anyone else in the warehouse. He lifted heavy boxes, stayed late whenever someone called in sick, and never complained when management piled extra tasks on him. Most people assumed he was just desperate for the paycheck, but the truth was deeper. Daniel was raising Lily alone after losing his wife in a tragic accident 5 years earlier. Every hour he worked, every shift he accepted, every holiday he skipped was for one reason only: to keep Lily safe, fed, and smiling. Vacations weren't something Daniel believed he could afford. Until this week. It started with Lily's school drawing. One evening she came home with a crumpled piece of paper covered in bright crayons. At the center was a small family sitting at a table with cake and candles. But something about it broke Daniel's heart, because above the drawing, in shaky letters, Lily had written "My dream holiday with Daddy." That night Daniel realized something painful. His daughter didn't want toys or expensive gifts. She just wanted time with him. So for the first time in 9 years, Daniel did something bold. He requested a single day off, just one. The company had a strict culture. Taking holidays was frowned upon unless absolutely necessary. But Daniel thought 9 years of loyalty might count for something. He was wrong. When Daniel walked into his boss's office that morning, he expected a short conversation. Instead, he walked into a storm. Vanessa Cole, the regional operations director, was known throughout the company for her cold efficiency. She valued productivity above everything else. And when she read Daniel's request, her expression hardened instantly. From her perspective, the warehouse was already understaffed. Deadlines were tight, clients were demanding. A holiday wasn't something she wanted to hear about. Daniel tried explaining that he hadn't taken a single day off in nearly a decade. He explained about Lily and the drawing. But Vanessa barely looked up from her tablet. She saw it as weakness. And weakness had no place in her company. Within minutes, the conversation ended with a decision Daniel never expected. He was fired. Not suspended. Not warned. Fired. The reason was written in a short HR note: failure to prioritize company needs. Daniel walked out of the building in shock, holding a cardboard box with his belongings. 9 years of loyalty ended in 9 minutes. For a while he just sat in his old car in the parking lot. His hands rested on the steering wheel while his thoughts raced. How would he tell Lily? How would he pay rent? How would he survive? But after a few minutes, something unexpected happened. Instead of driving home, Daniel picked up his phone and called someone he hadn't spoken to in years. An old number, a number he had kept saved even though he never believed he would use it. When the man on the other end answered, Daniel spoke with quiet humility, and the man listened carefully. An hour later, Daniel received a simple message: "Meet me for dinner tonight." That was how Daniel ended up sitting at that restaurant table. Across from him sat Edward Langston. To most people, Edward looked like a calm, elderly gentleman with silver hair and thoughtful eyes. But those who truly knew him understood something else. Edward Langston was the founder of Langston Holdings, one of the largest investment groups in the region. Years ago, long before Daniel worked in warehouses, he had helped Edward in a way few people knew about. Back then, Edward had been injured in a roadside accident while traveling through a small town. Many drivers passed without stopping. But Daniel, who was just a struggling mechanic at the time, stayed with him for hours, helped him reach the hospital, and refused any reward. Edward never forgot that kindness. Life separated them after that day, but the memory remained. So when Daniel finally called, Edward didn't hesitate. And that dinner invitation carried more meaning than Daniel realized. They sat together in warm silence for a moment, sharing a quiet meal while Daniel explained everything that had happened. Edward listened carefully. He didn't interrupt. He simply nodded slowly, his eyes filled with quiet understanding. What Daniel didn't know was that Edward had recently been considering purchasing Ridgewell Logistics as part of a major expansion plan. And hearing this story changed everything. At that exact moment, Vanessa Cole walked into the same restaurant. She had come for a business meeting with investors, expecting a routine dinner discussion. But fate had something else planned. As she walked toward her table, her eyes scanned the room. Then she saw him, Daniel Carter, the employee she had fired only hours earlier. Her first reaction was annoyance. Seeing him there felt like some strange coincidence. But then she noticed something else. The man sitting across from Daniel, and her entire body froze because she recognized him instantly. Edward Langston. Her mind raced. Langston Holdings had been negotiating with Ridgewell Logistics Board for weeks. If the deal went through, Edward wouldn't just be an investor. He would become the owner. Vanessa felt a chill run down her spine as realization began to settle. The man she had dismissed as expendable was sitting across from the most powerful potential buyer of her entire company. And they weren't strangers. They were clearly close. Across the room, Edward looked up and calmly met her gaze. His expression remained polite, but there was something unmistakable in his eyes. Disappointment. Not anger, not hostility, just quiet disappointment. And somehow that felt worse. Vanessa suddenly understood something she had never considered before. In her pursuit of efficiency and profit, she had forgotten the most important part of leadership: people. Meanwhile, Daniel had no idea what storm was unfolding across the room. He simply continued explaining his fears about finding another job and providing for Lily. Edward placed his fork down gently and leaned back. Then he smiled. Not a big smile, just the kind that carried quiet reassurance. Because in that moment, Edward had already made a decision. The acquisition of Ridgewell Logistics would move forward, but leadership would change, not out of revenge, not out of anger, but out of principle. Weeks later, the company announcement shocked everyone. Langston Holdings officially acquired Ridgewell Logistics. Vanessa Cole was quietly removed from her leadership position, and Daniel Carter received an unexpected phone call, not from HR, from Edward himself. The offer was simple. Daniel would help design a new employee program focused on fairness, family balance, and recognition for long-term loyalty. Someone who truly understood sacrifice needed to shape the company's future. Daniel didn't consider himself a leader, but he accepted. Not for himself, for Lily, for every worker who felt invisible, and for the lesson that kindness, even when forgotten, always finds its way back. Before we finish this story, I want to ask something from the heart. If Daniel's journey touched you in any way, please take a moment to like the video, comment your thoughts, and share it with someone who believes kindness still matters. And here's a special request. Comment the word kindness below if you believe one small act can change someone's entire life. Because sometimes the people we overlook are the ones connected to the greatest opportunities. But more importantly, they are the ones who remind us what humanity really looks like. Daniel's story isn't just about losing a job. It's about the quiet power of patience, loyalty, and doing the right thing even when nobody is watching. And sometimes, all it takes is one dinner table for the truth to finally be seen.